So sometimes when we get our wages, sometimes we need to deduct some amounts, maybe something like tax or any expenses that needs to be considered. These are the things that I'm going to be talking about. The first one is the income tax. Now, income tax is the amount that the government requires employees to deduct a certain amount of money from the gross pay. Well, most of the time when we get a job and we get paid, we need to pay a particular amount of tax. It could be a certain percentage of your income. That's what we need to pay to the government. So that's what income tax is. Gross pay is without any deductions. So the original amount that you get from your boss, of that amount, we're going to be multiplying a certain percentage to calculate the income tax. So the gross pay is the initial pay that you get. Another one I want to introduce is called the superannuation. I'm not sure if anyone has, or most of you have heard about this before, but superannuation is money set aside by an employee for their retirement. A lot of people now are considering superannuation funds so they can keep aside where they can put in some amount of money, maybe like a small portion of their income to put into their superannuation fund. So when it piles up, they can use that money when they become retired. That's superannuation. Now basically gross payment, I've actually explained this up the top. Gross payment is your initial payment that you get straight away from your boss. Now the gross payment minus any deductions, say for example the income tax and any superannuation, will be your net payment. So after making any necessary deductions, the final amount that you get on hand is your net payment. Okay, so first of all, please understand the difference between gross payment and net payment. These are two important terms. So net payment is the payment after any deductions made. So let's try some questions now. Starting with question 1. John earns a weekly wage of $500 and a travel allowance of $40 per week. We have some new types of expenses here. Travel allowance, and we've got weekly wages. Some of these terms may be new, but trying to understand the main point of it, which I'll explain shortly as well. Now he needs to pay his income tax of $32 and superannuation of $45. So first of all, the important stuff. Weekly wage. Every week he gets a wage of $500. Now he also gets some travel allowance. Now what does it mean by allowance? It's something extra, like a little bonus that you get. So a travel allowance is a little bit of the money that maybe is given to you for traveling, and a little bonus. So that's a little extra that he gets. So that's $40 per week. Here's where we talk about deductions. He needs to pay tax of $32, and also he needs to pay a small amount, $45, to his superannuation. So let's find his gross payment. Now you know that the gross payment is his initial value without making any deductions, isn't it? So it's simply the wage plus his travel allowance, which is the $40 per week, but we're just talking about the 1 week's gross payment. So it's 500 plus 40, which is simply $540. Okay, so make sure you don't deduct anything here yet. Now we want to find the amount of the deductions. So the deductions are enclosed by the income tax and superannuation. So it's going to be 32 plus the $45, which is simply $77. Okay, so simple, isn't it? And then finally is net payment. Net payment is the gross payment minus any deductions made. These are the deductions. This is the gross payment. So we simply have to deduct it. That will be your net payment. That's the gist of this topic, guys. That's pretty much what you need to understand, where we add and where we deduct. So that was the first question. Question 2, fill in the blanks. We've got 3 questions here, A, B, and C, and we've got some 3 sections that we need to consider. Gross payment, the deductions that need to be made, and the final net payment, okay? Let's start with A. Here's the gross payment, and here's the deductions. The net is simply the deductions made from the gross payment. So you subtract the deduction from the gross payment, therefore it's simply 560 minus the 76. That's your answer. So put that into your box there. For B, we want to do the deduction. Now remember this equation here, that's what we're going to be using. Deduction is the gross payment minus the net payment. Basically the difference is the deduction, isn't it? So therefore, I'm going to do the 871 minus 764. and then that will be your deduction. So put that into that missing plot there. Now finally for C, we can see that the gross payment that we want is the net payment plus the deduction, because gross payment is the payment that is without any deductions made. So we add back the deduction to the net payment and that will be a gross payment. So you simply add these two together and get that. So put that in, that is your gross payment for C. So trying to understand these little equations that I brought up here, you don't have to write them down every single time, but as long as you understand the background of it, that's what you do for this kind of question. Question 3. Okay, we've got some little bits and pieces here. Weekly wage, income tax, superannuation. So the first 3 you should be very familiar with. Now we've also got health insurance. This is a little insurance that we purchase just for the safety of just for the risks of any injuries or any health issues. So we want to pay some health insurance to an insurance company just to insure that risk. And we've also got some union fees, a particular fee. So it's obviously fee means something we have to pay. A, we want to calculate the net payment. So in A, we simply subtract all these little deductions, because these are all deductions. Income tax is a deduction, superannuation we deduct, health insurance we need to pay, so it's a deduction. Union fee, it's a fee, we need to deduct it. So from the weekly wage, simply deduct them all, calculate, and then put that back into your box there. That is your net payment. Now I've got a next thing. This time they give you the net payment, but they don't give you what the superannuation is. After basically 750 minus all these will become this. So I can say that it's going to be 750 minus all of these will become, so the difference of all of those will become the missing deduction. And that comes to 67. So that is your superannuation fund. So you can see that after deducting all of these from 750, you will also get 601. Now see, this time they don't give you the weekly wage. Now remember, the original weekly wage is the gross pay, so without making any deductions. This is the net payment and these are all the deductions made. We simply have to add them all up, because remember, the gross pay for this weekly wage is without any deduction. So we add them back up onto the net payment. And add them up, guys, be very careful though. That's what you should get. So that is our weekly wage. Question 4. The regular hourly rate of a 40-hour work is $16. So that's the hourly rate. He has deducted $44.80 in a weekly tax. We've got some tax going on, weekly tax of $44.80. Now find his gross payment. Now every week he works 40 hours and he gets this much per hour. Simply calculate it. 40 times 16, which is something like that. That is the gross payment, the initial amount that you get from your boss or the owner. And then without making any deductions, so make sure you don't deduct anything yet. Now find his net payment. Now net payment is after we make any deductions from the gross payment. So remember, we make a weekly tax of $44.80, just subtract it, and that will be your answer. And that's it. So simply subtract the weekly tax from your gross payment, and that is your net payment. Very simple. Find the percentage of his gross wage paid in tax. Okay, so the percentage of his gross wage paid in tax, we pay $44.80 in tax. This is your gross payment. So the proportion would be $44.80 out of the 640. And to get the percentage, always multiply by 100, calculate to 7%. Question 5. The monthly salary is $4,800. Find the amount of the income tax if the tax is 6% of the gross payment. We just want to calculate the 6% of your monthly salary. That is your income tax. That is the tax that we wanted to calculate. Now B, find the amount of superannuation, which is 9% of the gross payment. So we found that that is the gross payment, right? Because we haven't deducted anything yet from this. And we want to find the superannuation, which is 9%. Calculate 9% of your initial payment, which calculates to this. Now find the net payment. Now remember, income tax, superannuation, this is all deductions that we need to make. So from our monthly salary, which is the gross payment, we subtract all of these like that, and then that will be your net payment. So calculate that very carefully that will be your net payment. Okay, so after we make all the deductions of income tax and superannuation. Question 6. Okay, we've got a big table here. Let's see what it consists of. It's got days, so we've got 3 days. It's got some working hours. So in day 1, he works from 9 to 5, day 2, 9 to 6, 9 to 7, and day 3. Site allowance, there's something called the site allowance, which we'll discuss in a second. Have a read of this. Kevin's normal working hours are from 9 to 5. So his normal hours is 9 to 5. Anything that he works over is calculated overtime. Okay, so it's either normal or overtime. With site allowance of $30 per day. Okay, so he gets a little site allowance for the little allowance that they give you as a bonus, $30 per day. Maybe because you need to use the site or something like that. They give you extra money to use for the site, working in the site. $30 per day, so every single day you get an extra $30. That's what we need to put over here. The first day, we work from 9 to 5. Well, our normal hours are from 9 to 5. So our normal hours is simply 8 hours, which is the difference of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So hopefully I don't have to explain that because I know that we've done a lot of those in the other topics. So 9 to 5 p.m., 8-hour difference. So that's our normal hours of work. Do we do any overtime? No, we didn't do any overtime because we just strictly did from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So no hours overtime, strictly 8 hours. Now the site allowance is simply $30 because we simply get $30 per day for the site allowance. Now let's look at day 2. 9 to 6 p.m. We've worked 1 more hour than the previous day. So we've worked 8 hours normal time, but this time we worked an extra hour overtime. We get $30 as site allowance. Now day 3, this time we work 1 more hour than the day 2. So again, we work 8 hours normal time, but overtime we work 2 hours this time. And then again, site allowance is $30. So have a look, let's add them up. Total of normal hours is 24. Total of overtime is 3. And total site allowance we get is 90. So we've filled out the table. Now let's answer question A. Kevin earns $12 per hour with his overtime paid at the double time rate. Do we all remember what double time means from our previous lesson? Double time is simply the double of your normal rate. If you get $12 usually, we'll have to double that up and make it 24 hours for any overtime that we do, okay, that we work. So that's the double time rate. Find his total gross payment. Okay, let's go for it. So this is the normal and this is the overtime. So for the normal, we multiply by our usual rate of $12. But for our overtime, we have to double the 12 by 2. And then we add our site allowance of $90. And then add it up, calculate it. That's what you should have. So please double check if you do get that. Each week, he pays 9% of his gross wage, not including overtime pay, into a superannuation fund. So into a superannuation fund, 9% of his gross pay. But this time, make sure it says not including any overtime pay. So we're not going to count any of these overtime. We're just going to calculate how much normal time he did. Find his amount of superannuation. His gross wage without including overtime pay is 24 times 12, because 24 is the number of normal hours we've worked, and $12 is our normal rate that we get per hour. So you do 24 times 12, and we still get our usual site allowance of $30 per day, so $90 in total. We add 90. Now to this, we multiply our 9%. So we just eliminate the overtime. We don't count that here. So calculate that. So make sure you calculate the brackets first and then you multiply that by 9%. That's what you should have. So that's the amount that we put into our superannuation fund. Okay, so we're trying to build up our value of our superannuation fund so we can get more money when we retire. That's the whole idea of superannuation. That's pretty much it. So hopefully you understood the gist of wage deductions.